Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Yamna, and today I will be talking about the book that I read in our careers class. Woo! It's called American Dirt by Jeanine Cummins, and it's a really good book.
Is it?
And I wanted to read it for a really long time. One, because the cover was really pretty, and two, because the synopsis just hooked me on the first time I read it. So let me give you my own little plot summary. This book takes place in modern-day Mexico with our protagonist, Lydia Perez. She is a wife to a reporter, a mother, and a dreamer, as well as a bookstore owner. Now, one day in her bookstore, a man enters and he buys two of Lydia's favorite books, and his name is Javier. And he and Lydia form a friendship, and it's really great until Lydia finds out that Javier isn't just a regular man. He's the leader of the drug cartel that's rampant in Acapulco. So yeah, and Lydia's husband, the reporter, writes an expose on Javier as the leader of the drug cartel. Wouldn't you know what happens next? 16 of Lydia's family members are killed, including her husband, and she has no choice but to flee with her son, who's 8 years old, out of her home that she's known her entire life. They make the decision to ride the freight trains in Mexico to the US border, known as La Bestia, or the Beast. And it's called that because of how perilous the journey is, like getting thrown off the bus and kidnapped and victimized through violence, and it's not safe, but they have no choice. I think you can assume that this book was not very stress relieving. Very, very stressful. In every turn, I was worried about Lydia and what was going to happen to her, and whether Javier was going to find her or not. It was not fun. But it was a big source of, building empathy. Because on every decision that Lydia made, I was empathizing with her, and I was caring about her, and I was scared for her. Because in every situation, she put her son first. She was thinking about Luca and what would happen to him and putting his safety first. So that was just very touching. Just how her life got thrown upside down after this happened. You would never imagine what that feels like, but the book does a really good job at writing about it. One of the perceptions of the world that I read about in this story that was very interesting to me was the perspective of roadblocks in Mexico through these Indiana missionaries that were there for a Christian retreat. Basically, roadblocks are from the cartels that are there, and they just block the road and demand money. The Indiana missionaries that were there, they were helping Lydia and Luca escape from one city to the next, and they were all white, and they saw the roadblocks as an exotic experience. They thought of it as something unique and cool and something in this city and this country that they would never have experienced anywhere else, and they got to tell it as a story to the people back home. But it's not an exotic experience. These are teenagers with guns, and they're demanding money, and for Lydia, it's something scary because what if they report her to Javier and Javier finds her? It was just very interesting to see. Another thing that I found really interesting was Lydia's identity. And in this one passage, it talks about Lydia and how, she and Luca are migrants in the story, right? They're migrating or immigrating out of Mexico to the US. And it talks about how Lydia realizes that for the first time, and how in the past she was always pitying the migrants and just wondering from afar what event would have caused them to leave their home that they lived in to move somewhere else to a strange place, right? And she would donate money from afar and wonder from afar until she is part of those migrants who have to leave their home, and she never would have expected that until it happened to her. It just goes to show how much of a deeper meaning experiences are given when you too have a personal stake in those experiences and can shed a personal perspective on it. It's just the realization and seeing it happen through Lydia's mind was very fascinating. Lastly, I would want to talk about the connection this has to present day with all the deportations that Donald Trump is demanding and his immigration policies now that he's in office. It's just it sheds a lot of light on perspectives such as these of people who are just trying to get to somewhere else safe and it's taking that away. Yeah. Lastly, I want to talk about the controversy with this book. Now, the author, she's half Irish and half Puerto Rican. So she's not a Mexican and not an immigrant. So how much credibility does she really have with this book and the story? Because it is not authentic. And the story could have very well been real, but it's a piece of fiction, and because of the author, it's not reliable. And it just becomes an overgeneralization of experiences and peoples and stereotypes, because we all know that, there's the stereotype with Mexico and cartels and how it's dangerous and rampant with the drugs, but it is something that people have to flee because it is dangerous, and the reality of it gets thrown out the window because of the book. So it brings into question who the author is to say that this is the Mexican experience, because she's not a Mexican and she can't tell people what is and isn't. Now, the author did say she did extensive research before writing the book, and the book itself is a great piece of grief, and it describes it very well, and the desperation that comes with it, with protecting your family. But it is a piece of work that I would take with a grain of salt, just because of the author. That shouldn't knock you out of not reading it, because it is a good book. It's still controversial and questionable, but it's also part of Oprah's book club of 2020. So read it or don't. I think you should read it. It was, even though it has controversy, I would rate it just from separating the book from the writer, an 8.5 out of 10. It was really good. So that's my book vlog. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.